Hello everyone. Myself, Elizabeth Chippy Matthew, your social science teacher. You are going to learn Economics Chapter 2 Sectors of the Indian Economy.
Human beings are engaged in various economic activities. Some of these are activities producing goods, and some other are producing services. Now, these activities are happening around us every minute as we speak. Now, how do we understand these activities? We can understand them by classification. We can classify these activities on the basis of nature of activity, and on the basis of nature of activity, it can be primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Then, on the nature of employment. Based on the nature of employment, it can be organized sector and unorganized sector. Then it is nature of ownership. And on the basis of ownership, it can be public sector and private sector. When I say a sector, I refer to a group of activities. So what about primary sector, which is the first one? This includes many activities like mining, agriculture, forestry, and fishing. In mining, we extract minerals and then it is processed. In agriculture, we grow different type of crops. In forestry, the forest gives us so many products apart from the wood, that is timber. In fishing, we get protein-rich fish. So what are we doing here? We produce goods by exploiting nature. So it is an activity of the primary sector. Then comes the secondary sector. Now whatever we happen to get in the primary sector is further processed. Like in the mines, we extract minerals and make metal out of it. And from metal, we can make automobile. In the agricultural lands, we grow cotton. And from that, we make the textiles. In the forestry, we grow timber. And from timber, we make furniture. Again, in the fields, we may grow sugarcane. And from that, finally, we get sugar. In all these activities, we take the raw material and process it. So, the secondary sector covers activities in which the natural products are changed into other forms. It is done through various ways of manufacturing that we associate with industrial activity. Now, we will understand these two sectors better by distinguishing them. When I say primary sector, it involves extraction and production of natural resources. Whereas in the secondary sector, the same products that we happen to get in the primary sector is processed. So it is processes of natural resources. Then the primary sector provides raw material to the secondary sector. Whereas the secondary sector converts raw material provided by the primary sector into finished or semi-finished goods. Primary sector is dependent on secondary sector to speed up production. Because if you want agricultural tools and implements, it is only secondary sector can provide. Whereas the secondary sector is dependent on the primary sector for the supply of raw material. Take for example a textile mill or a sugar mill. They all depend on agriculture for raw material. Greater dependence on primary sector indicates underdeveloped economy. And a shift of economic activities from primary to secondary sector indicates a developing economy. Examples of primary sector are agriculture, mining, forestry. And examples of secondary sector are the manufacturing industries and construction. Then we come to the tertiary sector. Tertiary sectors are activities that help in the development of primary and secondary sector, because whether it is agriculture or industry, they require transport, they require banking, they require communication, and all the people who work here, they require medical facilities, education, and so on. So these activities generate service, rather than goods. And they are also called the service sector. Now let us compare the three sectors with each other. On one hand, we have primary sector, where we practice agriculture and produce many agricultural products. Then it is mines which give us mineral, fishing which gives us fish, and forestry which gives us timber. On the other hand, industries comes in secondary, which deals with manufacturing or processing. Then it is tertiary sector. In tertiary sector, there is transportation, medical, educational, and banking facility. Now, all three are interdependent on each other. If I take the first one, primary here, agriculture requires tools and implements, and it has to come from the secondary sector. For mining, again, we require machines, and that has to come from secondary sector. For fishing, we require fishing nets, fishing rods, and so many other equipments. For forestry, for cutting of trees, again, machines are required. So in all these areas, we depend on the secondary sector. Similarly, once they are produced, they have to reach the final destination. They may have to reach the industry, or they may have to reach the customers. There it is transportation that helps. When it is manufacturing and processing work, they require raw material, and that comes from agriculture, or that comes from mines, or that comes from fishing or forestry. Then again, manufacturing and processing industries require transportation, because raw material has to be brought there. Finished products have to go to the market. People have to come there to work. Then the people require medical facilities, educational as well as banking. So we understand all three sectors are interdependent. Now the various production activities in primary, secondary and tertiary sector produce a very large number of goods and services. And also the three sectors have a large number of people working in them to produce these goods and services. So our next step is to see how much goods and services are produced and how many people are working in each sector. Now in an economy, there could be one or more sectors which are dominant in terms of total production and employment, while other sectors are relatively small in size. So to understand how much goods and services are produced, we need to understand GDP. Now we have seen that economic activities are made up of primary, secondary and tertiary sector. When we find the total money value of all the goods and services from all the three sectors, it is known as GDP. So what is GDP and how do we count the various goods and services? GDP is a monetary measure of the market value of all final goods and services produced in a period. It is a sum of primary, secondary and tertiary sectors. That is what is GDP. Now economists suggest that values of goods and services should be used rather than adding up the actual numbers. And not every good and service that is produced and sold needs to be counted. Only the final goods and services should be included. Let's understand this. Supposing our country is producing coconuts, and this is just an example. We have 5,000 coconuts and they are produced and sold at 10 rupees each. What will be the total money value? It is going to be 50,000. Similarly, we have wheat and it is 10,000 kgs sold at a price of 8 rupees per kg. The value of wheat will be 80,000 rupees. So we need to take precaution that not every good and service produced is to be counted. We need to look and count only the final goods and service. Let's understand this with an example. Say we have the same wheat, 8 rupees per kg. We convert it into flour. It is 10 rupees per kg now. And we make biscuits out of it. Just for our understanding, we take only 4 biscuits and the value is 60. So I should not take 8 rupees and 10 rupees. I should take only 60, because if I am counting 8 and 10, then there will be a double or triple counting of the same things. So this is the meaning of only the final product is to be taken. So many things that we use in our day-to-day life, it can come from the primary sector, then come to secondary and then tertiary. So only the value of the final goods or services must be taken. Let's understand this. Say the value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year provides the total production of sectors for that year. Now let us understand GDP better with the help of this graph. In 1973 and 74, from the primary sector we had 2.6 lakhs, secondary sector 1.3 lakh and tertiary sector 1.5 lakh. The total income is in the form of crores. So here the total income comes to 5.4 lakh crores. This was from the three sectors. So this is the GDP in 73-74. But if we come a little ahead, 13-14, from primary sector we jumped from 2.6 to 9 lakh, secondary 1.3 to 13 lakhs and tertiary sector to 35 lakh. And the total income from all three sectors is 57 lakh crores. So this is the GDP, that is gross domestic product of our country in the year 13-14. Now how did we make progress and how did we evolve gradually from primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary sector? For that we have to look at our history. The world was in first stage, and when it was on the first stage, that time the main activity, the main occupation of the people all over the world was agriculture. So we can say in the initial stages of development, primary sector was most important sector of human activity because they knew agriculture or mining or fishing. Most people were employed in this sector and most of the goods produced were of natural products. Agricultural sector gradually prospered and produced much more food than before. Buying and selling increased many times and new professionals developed like craftsmen and traders, administrators, transporters and even army. So this was stage 1. Coming to stage 2, new methods of manufacturing were introduced. Factories came up and started expanding. People began to work in factories in large numbers and people began to use goods produced in factories because it was available at a cheap rate. The secondary sector gradually became the most important in production as well as employment. So we can say that the secondary sector gradually became the most important in production and employment. Coming to stage 3. In stage 3, that is in the last 50 years, there has been a shift from secondary sector to tertiary sector. It became the most important in terms of total production and employment. Let us understand this with the help of GDP again. Now if we see the share of GDP in each sector in 73-74, initially it was primary sector 40, this is percentage now. Secondary sector is 12% and tertiary sector 48. Again in the year 13-14, the primary sector jumped down to 12, which is a good sign. Because in any developed country, the primary sector is just within 5%. And ours has come down. Secondary sector has increased from 12 to 20. And tertiary sector from 48 to 68. So we can say that over the 40 years, production in all the three sectors has increased. But it has increased most in the tertiary sector. Let us sum up the reasons for rising importance of tertiary sector in India. Many basic services provided by government increased. When I say basic services, it includes hospitals, educational institutions, post and telegraph service, police stations, court, village administrative offices, defense, transport, banking, insurance, banks, insurance companies, etc. Second, the development of agriculture industries leads to development of services like transport, communication. As income levels rise, sections of people demand more services, and that is why the malls have come up. New services developed, and these new services are, one is IT and other one is communication, which has become an essential part of our lives. Now, not all service sector is growing equally well. Why is it so? The reasons are, service sector in India employs different kind of people. When I say different kind of people, that is different type of labor. One can be unskilled, like lot of landless laborers working in the fields. Then it is semi-skilled. Semi-skilled are people who can develop skills within a week and start working, like making baskets. Then there is skilled. These people require at least a year to develop those skills. And highly skilled, like engineers, doctors, scientists come under that category. So limited number of services employ highly skilled and educated workers. And large number of services employ small shopkeepers, repair persons, transport persons. And they barely manage to earn a living and have no alternative opportunities to work. And that is the reason not all the service sector is growing equally well. Now let us understand where are most of the people employed. When we see employment, in the year 70-71, the primary sector had accommodated 74% of the employed people. Secondary it was 11 and tertiary 15. But in the year 11-12, it has changed and the primary has come down to 49, which is good. Secondary is 24 and tertiary is 27. Now why are most people employed in primary sector? The reason is not enough jobs were created in the secondary and tertiary sector in the last 40 years. Then it is production in industries increased 9 times, but the employment in industries have increased only 3 times. Production services have increased 14 times, but the employment service has increased only 5 times. More than half of the workers are working in primary sector, mainly in agriculture, producing 1/4 of the GDP. And the secondary and the tertiary sector produce 4/5 of the produce and employ less than half the people.
Here ends part 1. Let us continue sectors of the Indian economy, part 2.
So what is unemployment? Unemployment is a situation where people of working age are willing to work at the going wages but do not get jobs is known as unemployment. So what is the government doing about it? So the government introduced National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, that was 2005. Under this act, the people who are able to and are in need of work are guaranteed 100 days of employment in a year by the government. It was started in the villages of 200 districts and has now been extended to villages in over 600 districts. 1/3 of the total work is reserved for women. So it has benefited the country immensely. Then it is underemployment. Underemployment is a situation in which people are apparently working. That is, it appears to be working, but all of them work less than their potential. Say a graduate or a postgraduate and he is doing the work of a bus conductor. Then we will say that he is underemployed. Then comes disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment is a kind of unemployment in which there are people who are visibly employed but are actually unemployed. In such a situation, more people are engaged in a work than required. Like in the agriculture sector, nearly 50% of the population is engaged. Whereas this work can be done by 5% of the population. And 45% of the people are in villages and into agriculture because they don't have any other jobs. Even if this 45% comes out and get into some other work, all the work will comfortably go on in the country and the production will not decrease. So this will be referred to as disguised unemployment, because in a developed country like US, 2% of the population is into agriculture. Why does disguised unemployment not help to enhance the productivity of the country? The reasons, let us sum up. More than half of the workers in the country are working in primary sector, mainly in agriculture, producing only 1/4 of the GDP. In contrast to this, the secondary and the tertiary sector produce 3/4 of the produce, whereas they employ less than half the people. If we move a few people out from agricultural sector, production will not be affected. These people are disguised, unemployed, and are not productive assets for country. Now, how can employment be increased in both rural and urban areas? The answer is education. Education can create employment in urban as well as rural areas. Second one is the vocational training. Vocational training is a training in any particular skill. That skill will give him immediate job is vocational training, like a computer DTP course. So vocational training also create massive employment. Then promoting allied activities along with agriculture, something related to that, like horticulture. Horticulture is growing fruits and vegetables. Pisciculture is fish farming. That is developing fishes in tanks and then selling it. Many of them export in our country through financial assistance from banks. So banks have a role to play. Promotion of small scale industries and self-help groups. In our country, we have plenty of small scale industries, and that is an asset of the country. It is easy to start. Banking in rural areas to help in the growth of primary sector and ultimately create employment. The reason is these poor people in the rural areas take money from zamindars and they always remain in debt. So only when the banks intervene in these rural areas, the people will be helped out and they can become self-employed. Programs like NREGA and NRLM generate employment. So these are the ways in which employment can be increased in the country. Now coming to the next part, and that is we learn about organized and unorganized sectors. Talking about organized sector, what is an organized sector? It is an enterprise that is registered by the government and follow rules and regulations. The terms of employment are regular and assured. And it is called organized because it follows the formal procedures. The good thing about this enterprise is that there is security of job, there is security of employment. There are fixed number of hours, and once that time is out, you can come out and go home. Workers are paid overtime if they work, and they also get benefits such as payments during holidays, provident fund and pension on retirement, gratuity. Gratuity is a big amount that is given to a person once he retires from a job. Generally, it is 20% of what he has earned. Then, medical benefits and safe working environment. Now, let's understand what is an unorganized sector. An unorganized sector constitutes small and scattered commercial units, and our country has plenty of this, which are outside the control of the government. There are no rules and regulations in the unorganized sector, and jobs here are low paid and irregular. Employment is not secure in this sector. So when I talk about unorganized sector, first of all, it is an enterprise not registered by the government. They have rules and regulations, but these are not followed. Terms of employment are not regular and no assured work. Employment is not secured and workers can be asked to leave without any reason. There is no fixed number of hours and they are not paid overtime. They also do not get benefits like payment during holidays, provident fund, gratuity, medical benefits, safe working environment, pension on retirement, and paid leave. So out of 475 million people employed in India, 82.74% of the people work in unorganized sector. Now we are clear why people like to work in organized sectors. The reason is workers enjoy security of employment and are expected to work only a fixed number of hours. Workers get several benefits from their employers and they get paid leave, payment during holidays, provident fund, gratuity, pension on retirements. Workers get medical benefits and also enjoy facilities like safe working environment and clean drinking water. Why are workers exploited in unorganized sector? The reason is employment opportunities in organized sector have been expanding slowly. So there are very few job opportunities. Many organized sector enterprises are found in the unorganized sector. And the reason behind that is to evade the tax, refuse laws that protect laborers. Since 1990s, large number of workers are losing jobs in the organized sectors. Now, let us come to the final part of the chapter and understand the difference between public sector and private sector. Economic activities on the basis of ownership. So, let us understand the difference between public sector and private sector. In the public sector, the ownership of the assets and delivery of services lies with the government. The motive behind running a public sector is welfare of the public. Say, for example, the post office and even the railways. They come under public sector. Then it is private sector. Here, the ownership of assets and delivery of service lies with the private individuals or companies. So in simple words, public sector is owned and managed by the government. Private sectors are owned and managed by the private individuals. Here, what is the motive? The motive is profit. We have all heard of Tatas and Reliance. They are examples of private sector. Now, why is it important for public sector to focus on some areas? Several things are needed by society, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost, like construction of roads, bridges, railways, harbors, generating electricity, and irrigation. Some areas need spending large amount of money, which is beyond the capacity of private sector. Collecting money from thousands of people who do use these facilities is not easy, and it is done by the government. Even if private sector do provide these things, they would charge a high rate for their use. So the government has to undertake heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. Now, there are some activities by which government has to support the private sector, or they may not continue the production or business. Say, for example, government produces and supplies electricity at a rate which these industries can't afford. Government bears a part of the cost, buys wheat and rice from farmers at fair price, stores it in godown and sells at lower price to consumers through ration shops. Then providing health and education facilities is also government's primary responsibility, like elementary education, safe drinking water, housing facilities for poor, food and nutrition facilities. To conclude, government will also take care of poorest and the most ignored regions of the country through increased spending in such areas. So with this, I conclude the chapter. Thank you.
Hope so, students, you have understood the chapter. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.